Geek Frost. Hi, my name is Anna, and I'm a singer.
Hi, my name is Peyton, and I'm a dancer.
And today, what are we doing today?
Today, we are back with more Kingdom reactions to episode 9. And we will be finishing out round 3, No Limit performances.
This week is episode 9 of Kingdom, the penultimate episode of Kingdom. And like Peyton said, we'll be watching the remaining 4 performances for the No Limit challenge. So as always, before we go in, a few disclaimers. As you've noticed from our past 2 videos now, and now this one too, because of copyright issues we had earlier reacting to Kingdom in like the beginning, when we watch the performances, it's jump cuts to when we like do a or say something interesting. So while it does break up the flow of the performance, this is the way that we have figured out how to show you guys reactions while not getting our videos blocked.
Second disclaimer, as always, we ask that you all are kind and respectful in our comment section, both to the groups that are performing and to each other. Everyone is working super hard on these stages and on these performances, the group members, the staff. We just want to be respectful of that. Please share your thoughts and opinions, but we just ask that you do it in a respectful way. You can hype up your faves without having to bring others down.
Third disclaimer, when we watch the performances, we do watch it in full without pausing or stopping the video. That's because, as we always say, these performances are meant to be viewed in full, as if we were a live audience. And also, we don't watch the episode beforehand. However, after this reaction, we do go back and watch the full episode because, once again, the stages should be able to stand on their own. We shouldn't need any extra background information to understand what is being shown to us.
Alright, and then as always, we're watching in episode order, and instead of timestamps this week, you all can find chapters in the scroll bar across the bottom. You can either click on the little highlights at the beginning of each section, or if you click the section titles, the chapters will pop up on the side of the video for you to select. So, trying something new, let us know what you think, and with that being said, go!
Okay, so first performance this week is by BTOB, and they are doing Blue Moon cinema version, and Blue Moon is one of their B-side tracks, so they're doing a fun new version of it for Kingdom. Based on the teasers, I've been really excited. As many of you probably know, I've been waiting for a jazzier style concept, so let's go!
Oh, and it's featuring
Myeon from G-Idol,
yeah.
Right. I forgot to say that in the beginning, sorry.
Her dress is very pretty. It's like a princess.
But the music makes it sound like something bad is gonna happen. They're filming a movie.
Universal Studios. Oh, but she went to Minhyuk, who's one of the staff members, so...
Oh, are they not just filming again?
No, he's a staff member.
Scandal. Yeah, I saw in like one of the pre-release clips that they're doing a live band of people that Changseok was in 군대 with.
Oh! It's a piano.
Yeah, it's not actually like the piano.
Oh, I mean, I know he's not playing, but...
Yeah. Oh my god.
Oh.
I was like, I need to say more. We haven't been saying a lot.
That was so good.
The ending is so good.
Are they fighting?
No! Oh, the beat change. Oh yeah, it's all just frozen.
Oh, what's gonna happen? They made up! Okay.
Oh, alright, modulation. Wow, he's really milking out this ending. Yeah, I love it.
His face is like, I know I'm good. Cut!
Yeah, it was like finale.
Oh wait, so was the love story between them part of the movie that they were filming? So it's like a movie in a movie.
Like La La Land.
And then she's actually with Peniel.
대박이야.
Amazing. I love this storytelling. I love the movieception. Myeon and Changseok filming a movie. but then the storyline of Mian and Minhyuk also being part of like the greater movie that they're filming, and then it all being broken at the end. I was like, wow, this really is La La Land. And also the thing was, the storytelling was so clear, like it was so easy to follow, and it broke at the right time. Like up until the end, it wasn't apparent that Minhyuk and Mian was also part of this like movie story. Sort of related to that, I love this styling. Like I was in love with the black and white patent shoes Ngwang, Peniel, and Changsub are wearing. I loved Mian's whole outfit. I loved the way the backup dancers were dressed. Like it's just so perfect for this concept and for that like jazzier feeling. And it really helps you get a lot more immersed in the story and into the storytelling. It sort of makes you feel like this isn't quite real life. But to talk just a little bit about the dancing, so the style of this, it's very musical theater, like the choreography of it. And obviously that makes sense for the concept, but I just thought there was some really interesting musical theater like elements that they'd added in. One thing is that for musical theater choreography, the dancing is not really the focus. The storytelling is the focus, and through the dancing you're telling the story. Like I remember one of my musical theater directors saying that dancing in a musical should feel like the emotion is just bursting out of you and it's causing you to dance. It shouldn't feel like, okay, now I'm gonna set and I'm gonna dance, which is why so much of it is walked into. Like they walk into their dancing positions because it's like, I just have to tell you this and it's like causing me to dance. And that was really apparent, like right when Ngwang starts dancing, he like slides into it and I was like, oh, this is so musical. But another thing that's very like common in musical theater style is you're dancing in your box and it's all very like forward facing, especially in large group numbers. So everyone's doing like the same or similar movement, but they're staying in their space and it's all like within this box. So even when they slide, the box moves with you. And I think that's very interesting because it creates these like very easy to watch stage pictures, and you can really see that in the finale scene, which also was just very set up like a musical finale where they had like the tiers of characters around it because they had, oh my god, I just forgot what it's called. Anyway, so they had all of the dancers and like the outer side, and then like the second inner ring was like the characters, and then the leads were in the center for the very ending, and they're all doing variations of the same movement, and it gets more intricate the further in that you get. So I thought that was really interesting. But something else about musical theater is that it's very stylized movement. So you can see that in a lot of the movements where, for instance, the slides that they do a lot, instead of just like sliding out, their shoulders are up, their hands are flexed, they're out in like jazz hands. They do a lot of flips of the wrist, and it's all very timed for the music. The whole point of dancing in this style is to highlight accents in the music. So it's like super big on musicality. The highlight moment of the choreography to me though was like the super brief partner dancing between Mian and Minhyuk at the very end, because it was just a very like beautiful moment, but also she pointed her foot. So just overall, this was very satisfying to watch. Anna's turn.
Alright, so now it's time for my comments, and before I get into what I have to say, the word Peyton was looking for in her comments is ensemble. Now moving on to my comments. Obviously, it was the storyline, like a movie in a movie, but also very musical theater-esque. First, I want to touch on the song a little bit itself. So the original Blue Moon is already jazzy, but for this performance and the arrangement, obviously that vibe is still the same. Like, it's very jazzy, as you can see, but they lean into a more show-tuney side of it in musical theater. There are like different styles of musicals, and this is very much like the OG original Broadway show-tuney musical that you think of style. And like one of the selling points for this performance was like the use of a live band, Changsub's Kunde Friends. And that brings me to like my one a bit of a shame comment, which really is not actually a shame. It's just me being like, oh, but I wish they had this, which is I wish they had used live brass as well. But anyways, we keep saying like this performance was like a musical, and it really was. Peyton touched on all like the staging performance stuff of that, and the ending musically really was like a musical finale number. I kind of had a throwaway comment in the reaction. I was like, oh, modulation. And modulation is basically like a key change in simple terms. So they move the key up by like half a step. Key changes happen a lot in pop songs, but also in musicals to like signify like this is the ending, because it like raises the energy even more. Also, one thing that I love about that moment is because the key change happens where I think Changsub is singing the consistent line theme, but you're really focusing on Eunkwang a lot because he's doing like his high note moment. But his high note from the previous key, the original key, carries over and it's like a suspension. So it's like building this tension because it's not resolved, and then you're in the new key for like a solid measure before he finally resolves. And it's just like such good tension building. I love it. Because his slide up is also super milked out, drawn out slides, and all of that are very fitting for like the jazzier style because you're like leaning into it and it's a little bit like sassy, I guess. But I also find it interesting because like while we say this is a more musical like performance, the way that they're singing is not musical but more jazz, I would say, which is also fitting. And obviously for that there were like runs and riffs everywhere. But the last thing I want to say was one thing that I really loved was that there were moments where the instruments would get to shine and rise up between the singing phrases. So like one that really sticks out to me is like when Changsub and Mian are like at the bar and at the end of his phrase there's like a little piano ornament that you hear, and it's just little things like that that really, I think it's the details that like elevate it that much more. That's all I have to say. Great performance. Next!
So, for the second performance today, we will be watching ATEEZ do their Kingdom version of Answer, Ode to Joy. And they are collaborating with La Poem, who is a, as Anna calls it, popera group that they met through the Turbo special of Immortal Songs when they were on it. And fun facts, reason I'm so excited for this is Answer is the song that made me an A-teenie when I saw them perform it live at Music Bank, so I'm super excited for this. Let's go. My heart's beating so fast.
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, they're dressed very like regal.
Yeah. Is it the masked man? I can't see. Is it Yeosan? Yeah.
James.
That's the masked man.
Hourglass.
Again, yeah. ATEEZ.
Which music video was that glass box in though? Was it Say My Name?
Oh, dance fight.
It's very dramatic.
Oh. They have the wine glasses, like the scene in the Answer music video.
Yes, but do you hear the beautiful O's in the background? That's interesting. They're doing like sort of rock.
Ah! That was the moment that made Sunny my bias.
Oh. That's
that
really
cool.
Oh! It's different.
And there's Hanghwa in the pirate outfit with the Kraken gun. This is so focused on ATEEZ lore.
Oh god, yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad they kept the chorus in it.
Oh, blindfold. Kigomiji. Oh my god. Oh, whoa, that's so cool.
But the music, it's like the outro music. What?
Oh, it's slowly accelerating.
I have goosebumps. Like actual.
미치겠다. Like a stairway to heaven or something?
Okay, well, if my like completely stunned utter silence for the last minute of this song and the fact that I literally had goosebumps and tears in my eyes by the end of it wasn't telling enough, I loved this performance. Like, this was beautiful. It was stunning. One thing that I really love about it, probably because I'm an A-teenie, is yes, it's a competition, and so like that's taken into consideration when they're staging this and telling the story, but more than that, it really felt like a gift for A-teenies. I know for one, a lot of A-teenies wanted to see Answer on Kingdom. I was one of them. But also like the story and the stage itself is so steeped in ATEEZ lore that it feels sort of like a secret message between ATEEZ and A-teenies, which is just so special. Honestly, I can't even name every reference. We don't have time. But like a few that are super obvious, the ATEEZ performance, so for non-A-teenies, the hat, the black hat is ATEEZ, and then the masked man in white that always makes an appearance in the music videos. So many things. They even had references to the other Kingdom stages. Like at first I actually thought it was Seonghwa dressed in his outfit from the Wonderland stage when he shot the Kraken, and then when I went back and watched it I realized they had dancers dressed like them from each kingdom stage as Hongjun's rapping, which also makes sense because ATEEZ lore and also their kingdom stages have been super related to like time travel and the hourglass. That sort of leads to my objective perspective. One thing I was thinking about is if you were not an 18e and you weren't familiar with ATEEZ's storyline, this would be a hard stage to follow, because even as an 18e, there's a lot of the lore that's very confusing to me because it is so like different versions of ATEEZ, different timelines. So if you didn't know any of this, like the references wouldn't be as meaningful to you. I don't think they should have done it any differently, but when I think about like from a competition perspective, that might have been a little bit difficult to intake. Okay, so to talk about a few things in the dance. So one, I loved they kept all of the key points of the choreography, but had rearranged it to fit like the stage and the arrangement of the song. The beginning, which is another reference to the Answer music video when they have ATEEZ and ATEEZ and the glasses and Sani on the table, or his backbend. Really, I was just so happy that they kept part of the chorus, because that beginning of the chorus is beautiful. Like, I love that choreography and it fits so well. And this is a very dramatic stage. And so that was one reason I was glad they hadn't changed it, because that choreography is already very dramatic. Like the turn drag, and they really milk that drag out before they're pulled back the other way. But a couple of more performative moments that I wanted to point out too. One was a very simple thing, but I think people don't realize how hard it is, with Chungho when he's walking up the stairs. That's a very performative moment, because if you actually watch him, which I think at that point he's walking, but there's so much else going on, you might not be focused, but he's very like erect and he's walking slowly and his head is up and it's very performative, and he has to stay like in character for that the whole time. Another one was Yeosang's moment on the floor. I thought that was so cool and so beautiful, and how he arched up made me so happy because you could see his like spine roll, and I was like, oh, the contemporary classes, yes! I'm running out of time, but I loved all of the fighting and dancing with the different alternate versions of ATEEZ, but especially the ending during the Ode to Joy part when they were doing everything so on the beat, like the da da da, everything had a movement and it just felt like something was building, and then it resolved and it had the like beautiful walk-up ending. I'm like very emotional right now. I don't think those comments were very constructive, but I really loved this. So Anna's turn.
Alright, so time for my comments. Just gonna get a little silly thing out of the way before I officially start. Peyton and I were joking after this that it's like ATEEZ knew my heart was gonna be pulled over because of a jazz performance I've been waiting this whole show for, and then they were like, nah, let's bring in legit classically trained singers to drag my heart back this way, and it kind of worked. God, I love a good baritone. Anyways, this is about ATEEZ, not about La Poème. Obviously, Answer is a very dramatic song to begin with and very intense, but this arrangement of the song for this performance was meant to increase that drama and intensity even more. I mentioned in the reaction, I was like, oh, they're kind of like leaning into a rock style for this. That really prominent electric guitar that you hear that's constantly just going like da 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 the whole time. It's a driving force. Very like da straightforward on the beat, but also since it is a harsher sound with the electric guitar, it's adding to the suspense that you know something is going to be there, because it's also being doubled by strings, which is a more classical instrument, and it's like also sort of foreshadowing, referencing that it's going to go very classical towards the end when they bring in La Poème. Adding to the sort of like suspense there's a lot of reverb to it, but I do think it's interesting that they would combine rock and like very classical, those two genres together, because when you just look at them on surface level, they're very different. It actually works very well because they're matching levels of intensity and drama. Although one thing I find really interesting is that the instrumental for this arrangement is basically like completely different from the original song. Like the only thing that would tell you that this is still Answer is because the melodies that they're singing are exactly the same. Like they haven't changed anything about it. So it's just really interesting to hear. Moving on, little in between, they do have moments where it's more like trendy. I'm just thinking of Yeosang's part moving under the arms, and that is more rhythmic with like the percussion as well. Besides that, the rest of it is very sort of like straightforward, like I said, very on the beat. So it's like very dramatic and driving that way because it's building up to the end of the song where the choral voices come in. Oh my god, it's just so beautiful. I don't have enough time to go into why it's wonderful for like the classical choir nerd that I am. But the ending where they're all standing on the stairs, I was describing it as like stairway to heaven. I said it that way because at first when they're walking, you hear a sort of like organ sound, and then the voices come in. Those ending voices is just like in a more female register, so like upper register female voices, and it's very open. The vowels are very rounded sort of O's, and that open feeling is like opening the gates. The higher register voices, like especially a higher soprano, really carries and lingers, which is the same effect as the white light that you see after that, like the edges of that light. I feel like I also did not describe my comments very well, but I also really enjoyed this and it was very beautiful. That being said, next. Alright, so third performance of this episode is SF9 doing Move, and it's originally by Taemin. Let's see how they rearranged and made the performance, also because Taemin's #1 fanboy based on Idol Room is in SF9, so.
True.
It's gonna be very interesting.
Futuristic, like scanning.
Yeah.
Eh?
I would not have expected this concept. Of course he starts it.
Yeah. I'm very happy for it. Oh.
It's already more synth heavy because techno.
Oh, that's a beautiful shot.
That's so cool. The difference in the bass. Subtle, but it's making a very big difference in the vibe.
Knee pirouette.
Oh.
Oh, on the stairs.
That's cool.
Oh, wow.
I'm just still a bit confused as to like what kind of world they're in, I guess.
Do you know what it reminds me of?
What?
It's like a museum exhibit. It's like performance art. I don't know if that's the concept they went for, but that's what it reminds me of.
No, yeah, I get it. Kombe. Dance section. Yep. The dancers have those like light stick things. It feels more like what you were saying.
And with like the way it's projected onto the back.
Yeah, like staggered. Oh, yep. They have background vocals for like the brighter light. Where are you going? What is this? Oh. Huh?
Color.
Oh, adding color to the monochromatic world. Slowly. There's still so much time left.
Why is it raining? Did he just leave the stage?
I don't get it.
I'm telling you, it's literally like an art exhibit.
Yeah. Through the water, through the glass. That's cool.
What is happening?
Is this like a high fashion thing that I just don't understand?
Yeah, it's very artistic and I'm just like, oh. So like I said in the reaction, the way that this was coming across to me was like a modern art exhibit. And I do think that there is a difference between the performing arts and performance art. And this was, in my opinion, the second. And like the nuances are very subtle. I don't even think I could articulate them well. But it's like I said, this should be in a museum. Like it feels like you're walking through a museum and you're seeing this, especially because of the fact they've done the chromatic. The female dancers are in white, they're in black, and then they're sort of adding the color and they have like the pop art words. But yes, I really enjoyed the concept and I thought that it came across very well. But it's kind of related to my like a bit of a shame, like a shuo comment. And that was just that I didn't really love the inclusion of the dance break. Because the rest of the performance from beginning to end, including like the outro where they're sort of like cool high fashion like art exhibit moment, was very like cool. It had that like sexiness to it, that nonchalance that you associate with Move. And then the dance break was very like in your face and sort of like broke that vibe. And I do think that they kept it within the realm of the concept by having the dancers with like the neon lights and the way that they had projected it up onto the screen where it was sort of like delayed and a little bit blurry, so it still felt like they were in that exhibit. But I don't know, I feel like usually when you add a dance break, it's to elevate the impact of a performance, and I don't think they needed it to have this be an impactful performance. It just felt like checking a box instead. I thought the rest of the performance was more impactful. But before I jump into dance comments, I just wanted to say really quickly, like, I'm so proud of Insong. Insong is my SF9 bias, so like I'm always very proud of Insong, but like especially today, because like Anna talked last week about how singing is a very mental thing, and dancing, performing is also a very mental thing, and this is the first performance that he's done on Kingdom since the vocal unit performance, where we all know he had like a mishap on stage. It's really a mental game to steel yourself and go into the next performance without letting that hold you back. And like, not only did he do well in singing, but his performing too. Like, his facials were so good and he was so locked into the performance, and I was just like, I'm so proud, I'm so happy for you. So that's my in-song fangirl moment. On to the dance, a couple of things. So one, I loved Channy at the beginning. First of all, I love that he started it, but also I thought he did such a good job setting the mood for the whole stage, because his movements were very like exaggerated and they stood out and they really highlighted the body line. And a lot of this dance is very about highlighting the lines of your body. I'm thinking specifically of when he does the like chest circle around, you could see his body moving. And I just thought it was a great way to start the stage. But also one thing I thought they did really nicely was carry that sort of like nonchalance that Peyton has in Move through this performance, but they'd also added that sort of like SF9 style, like that sexiness to it. Not that the original's not already, but it has like a different style to it. And honestly, I was just thinking about after their round 1 performance when their feedback was they weren't sexy enough, which like, but I really think they blew it out of the park here. But my favorite moment of the whole performance was on the stairs. Oh my gosh, that choreography is beautiful, and it was pulled off so well because you run a danger with moving the different levels of it feeling disjointed or like you have to step into it, but it wasn't. Like, every transition was so smooth and it really kept that whole vibe that they were going for. I can't get over it. Like, that whole part was just stunning. That was wonderful. Anna's turn.
Hello, so for my comments, the first note that I also wrote down was I'm glad that they included a moment for in-song redemption high note, and they like highlighted it. It was very much a highlight because you can see him leading up. It's just him like walking and then he's on his knees to sing it. But now to talk about the rest of the performance and like the song and the arrangement. Peyton usually touches on the storyline and the concept, but I wanted to add a little bit because the intro, I kept saying like, oh, it's like technology. It made me think of those like sci-fi movies where it's like, oh, everything is black and white, colorless world, everyone is the same, and like we're all being fit into these like uniform boxes, and then slowly breaking free from that rebellion and adding the color. But also for each individual member, they had a different like solo color of light. So is it also like, oh, we're each our own thing, and then when we all come together we create this beautiful rainbow? Probably yes. But I thought that that was just like, modern art can be interpreted in like multiple different ways for like each member of the audience, for each viewer. Talking more about the song, similarly to the performance, they maintain like the vibe of the original song by Taemin, the sort of nonchalant, subtle, but also sexiness that there is. One thing I wanted to really highlight though was I mentioned in the reaction, I was like, oh, the bass is different, like very subtle, but it makes a difference in like the effect and how I'm receiving it. And I really meant that during, I think it's Taeyoon's first part, because in the original song, the bass that you hear, it's still sort of like connected, like there are the distinct hits, but it's still sustained throughout. Instead, for this arrangement, it's already rhythmic and separated, like how it becomes in the chorus, and that made a really big impact on how I was interpreting their version of the sort of like sexiness that there is, because originally in the song, since it is sustained, it feels more sort of like lurking. You're still still, but then because there's already movement in the bass for their stage, it's like they're prowling. The bass is already moving, so they're already moving, and like they are the predator, you are the prey. I just thought it was interesting, and like you see that in their gaze the entire time as well. Like, I especially see it whenever Taeyang is in the center for dancing and they close up on his face. He does it very well, like the sort of hooded eyes and head sort of down, but they're looking up at you. It's very like, I don't know, sort of intimidating, but also sort of trying to drag you in. Also, another sort of like subtle difference is that while the original, by the final chorus, it's still the same and it's very restrained the entire time. For this arrangement, by the final chorus, there is more movement. Like, there are brighter synths added on top, and those synths that they have added, there's a lot more movement between them as well, like not only between pitches but also like rhythmically, and that is very reflective of like the color being added to the stage. When you interpret it as like the art piece in a museum and like how it all reflects each other, it makes a lot of sense. Very well constructed, but also I feel like too sophisticated for me. Anyways, I'm done. Next!
Okay, so for the final performance today, we will be watching the BOYZ, and they are performing their version of EXO's Monster, Stormborn. Very excited.
Is that a Game of Thrones thing?
I think it might be a Game of Thrones thing. I don't know. Let's go!
Also, in case you're new here, we're both very big XOLs. Cool.
Oh my god. Wait, the sun at the beginning, it's like the O Sole Mio stage.
And now it's...
Now it's a moon.
Yes. Oh. Ah!
Q-Center!
And his hair sticks out so well.
Wow!
Oh,
that was a really cool moment.
yeah.
Jump! Levels.
What is that instrument?
Yes! Yes!
Are you good, Peyton?
I'm okay!
Oh, I'm glad they kept in the X.
Me too!
It's iconic.
Oh, and this is all the same but like super layered. This is the exact chorus choreography from start to finish.
Oh, what was that? Who like went down in the middle? Oh!
Oh!
I like that.
Nice. I also like Eric's ponytail.
Me too. Oh, good job, Jacob. Oh, that's cool.
I really like the use of shadows.
Oh, what? Oh, chaotic strings. Yes.
Although it's kind of like Harry Potter basilisk.
I was like, oh my god!
Of course it's Sonu!
Oh.
Oh.
Oh. I like how they added the chords for that.
Hi, Tanny.
I figured out the word. It feels more refined.
His smile!
I knew you were gonna say that. Is it gonna eat them?
I hope not.
I don't know, because the snake turned back towards them. Oh, it's turning back.
And I like it's slowly. Tanny Center!
That's new.
Literally new.
Uh-huh.
Pan Injong.
Half and half.
I had high expectations for this stage because I've seen the BOYZ cover EXO before and I know how well they fit that sort of style. Expectations met, expectations exceeded. I just had like an experience, if you couldn't tell from my reaction. But to start, one thing I did find interesting, speaking of that experience, was how much of the original choreography they had used in that first chorus, because like I said, it was the same from start to finish. And I actually had started to get worried because I was like, oh, I don't want this to feel like a cover stage, like I want them to take this and make it their own. I didn't really need to worry though, because other than that one section, like everything after it was original choreography, but you could also tell that it had been inspired by the EXO choreography, like the little moments that they had made to include. Even with that first chorus, because so many more people had been added to it, it felt so much more intimidating. Like I said, oh, they've got layers, and they really did. Like the last part of the chorus, they had so many different lines of people doing it different ways, but it all worked together. And that's cool too, because that choreography there anyway, when they're doing this thing that you can't see because you can only see me from here up, is supposed to be very machine-like anyway, and that's what it felt like. It felt like parts of a machine being built on top of each other, so I really liked that. But in one way, they had made it more the BOYZ style. It was a lot sharper and a lot more in sync, because EXO really tends to highlight their individuality in their dancing, and when you're doing a cover of a Sunbae's choreography, you need to make sure it's like perfect. So for that chorus, they had really made sure that everything was so sharp and so together, which also makes it more intimidating and fits the vibe they're going for. Concept-wise, just briefly, I think it's a Game of Thrones reference. If it is a Game of Thrones reference, again, completely going over my head because never seen the show. But I do get that it's probably connected to the O Sole Mio stage because of the sun and how it transforms to the moon and then back at the end. Even without knowing Game of Thrones though, like I get it. Like I get the snake representation as the monster. And I do believe from my brief knowledge that like the snake has some sort of significance to Game of Thrones. Just a couple of things about the dance. I mentioned this in the reaction. I really liked the part where they played with the shadows. That moment, especially when it started, the choreography got a little bit softer, but it wasn't soft in like a delicate way. It was in like a predator sort of like slinking way, and it really build the tension in the same way the ending after the rap does that as well, because the dance style there changes too, and they all go down and are sort of like snaking. And I mean, like, obviously there's a big snake behind them at that point, so you get like the reference, but it's that sort of like building tension, like I haven't attacked you yet, but I'm coming and you can see me coming and there's nothing you can do about it. I also really liked the rap section choreography because, first of all, I loved Sonu jumping out of the snake. Should have expected it, but for some reason didn't. But then I also loved Eric jumping off of it, and all of the like jumping and going back and forth in the rap was one of the examples of like, oh, it's been inspired by the original, but it's like in the BOYZ version, because in the original rap it's very like back and forth, like group wise. Also, Eric, the beginning of his rap was so impactful to me. I was like, I've never heard you rap with this deep voice before. Oh my gosh. Performance quality, wow. Like, they all knocked it out of the park with their facials. But I just want to brag on Q, on Ji Chungmin for a second. Like, he has such a good time performing, and you can really say it louder, Chungmin. He has such a good time performing, and you can really see that when he's on stage. Like, you can see how much he loves to be on stage, and that smile that he did was part of his like character, but it was also very genuine. Like, you could see in his eyes he's like having emotional. Anyways, Anna's turn.
Hello, so for my comments, I'm just gonna get it out of the way right now. I also don't know Game of Thrones. We say it like every single time the BOYZ has a stage. But it does track like, oh, this is the suspense building climax, and this is like the conflict sort of thing. Now, to talk about the arrangement a little bit, I was trying to find a word to describe how this is different, and I settled on refined in the reaction, but even then, I don't think that fits exactly. Describing my thought process a little bit. The original Monster by EXO is extremely grungy, even in the way that they're dressed in the music video, and like the sound, very like, whew. And I think a big difference in the original versus this arrangement is the bass. The bass again. But I mean, like, the reason why I feel like basses make such a big difference in a song is because they are the base, like the foundation. So it's going to have a big impact. In this arrangement, for the BOYZ performance, it moves a lot more, especially in the beginning of the chorus. And then as the song progresses, not even just in the bass, but in the other instruments as well, there is a lot more movement, and register-wise, it's placed a lot higher. So if I were to describe the monster that is being depicted through these songs, the EXO one is like coming through from the depths of, I don't want to say the depths of hell, but it's like,
you can say it.
The depths of hell, and it's like rising out. In my mind, this image is like, it's very dark, covered in dirt, sort of shadowy. But then the monster that's being depicted in the BOYZ arrangement is very like calculated, clinical, like a snake. A lot of times, if you think about like how snakes are personified in movies, just think about Harry Potter. Cunning, resourceful, calculating, you know? But like the movement in the BOYZ arrangement of that really describes how they're like constantly, their mind is constantly like calculating, thinking of different ways to move around. And also another thing on top of that is like a lot of the instrument layers that are used in the BOYZ arrangement have a thinner sound and texture to it. So I'm really thinking of that one instrument that I do not know what it is. I know it's a string instrument that you hear, especially in the beginning, but it's not the typical like violin, viola that you would think of. If you know the instrument, please let me know. But it's like very thin and singular. Another sound is like during the Sonu Eric rap section, there's this synth line that also has like a thinner texture to it as well. After the snake has calculated very precisely what they want to do, the punches during the end of Eric's part, I think, are like the attacks in my mind. But yeah, I think that is the word description I was looking for, but I couldn't figure it out during the reaction itself. The last sort of musical thing I wanted to talk about was the dance break section. One thing I really enjoyed was the beginning of it, how it's very minimalistic, because it helps build the suspense for the next part that's about to happen. It was just like very subtle percussive hits that were kind of just like sound effects instead. And I also enjoyed how in the stage, the screen they used during that section, creating the setting. And I'm sure it's probably a similar setting to something in Game of Thrones that we just don't know. And then the last thing I wanted to say was I'm really glad in this performance. One thing I really appreciated was more members got center spotlight than we have been seeing in previous The BOYZ performances on Kingdom so far. So I really enjoyed it. I'm really just thinking of like you finally being the center at the end. That's all I had to say. I'm done now.
TLDR is we have now finished reactions for the penultimate episode of Kingdom. Round 3 No Limit stages are done, and they just blew us away. Jaws on the floor. Every group did so well, really took No Limit to heart, proved everything they're capable of, and we cannot wait for next week for the finale to see what they come up with.
maybe we have a surprise in store for you all for the finale reaction. But you'll just have to wait until next week to see. As always, feel free to leave your opinions down in the comments below if you agree with us, if you disagree with us, anything you have to add. But as always, please be kind, respectful to each other and the groups. But also, like, if you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell for our reaction to the finale, and bye!